Hey everyone, and welcome back to the FishMarketAcademy, where we teach you how to fish for gains. So in today's video, we'll be exploring THORChain's mainnet upgrade. So without further ado, let's take a look. So as usual, nothing I say is financial advice. Okay, before we go into their mainnet, let's do a quick recap of what THORChain is. So THORChain is an independent layer 1 built in 2018 using the Cosmos SDK by an anonymous group of founders. And what's so cool about them is that they allow you to swap natively across chains. So basically there's no wrapping and all that. You can swap Ethereum directly into Bitcoin from the ETH network into the Bitcoin network. So there's no proxies and it's just really native assets. And every asset pair is paired with RUNE to create deep liquidity within the THORChain ecosystem. And the main ecosystem swap DEX is called THORSwap. So right now, there's going to be a migration from Chaosnet to Mainnet. So if you're looking at this video, make sure that you actually move and migrate your RUNE into Mainnet RUNE and upgrade this on the THORSwap website. So after this, you have all the BEP2 RUNE changed to native RUNE, and then they will also be relisted on most centralized exchanges. And what this means also is that because they're now on mainnet, they're no longer going to give insurance or bailouts if there's any exploits. So previously, there were, I think, like 3 or 4 exploits in THORChain, and that resulted in people losing some of their LP and all that. And they were able to compensate all of these users. But after doing a lot of security testings, they are ready and confident to do mainnet, but they will also no longer provide any insurance for any potential exploit. So just be careful with how you interact with this protocol. But they also have, after this, more wallet integrations and more chain integrations, which is very exciting, which we will go through in a bit. So right now, let's go through the Chaosnet Stats. They have about 9.2 billion in volume across 3.4 million swaps with about 9.8 million transactions. So the reason why more transactions than swaps is because transactions include like LP, depositing and withdrawing, etc. There's a current total value lock of 315 million. This has dropped quite a lot because of the bear market. They also had a total trading fees generated of 79 million, which is pretty nice. And the largest swap is 400 ETH worth 1.33 million directly on the platform. And the largest sleep fee paid is 75%. Ouch, but the guy probably really needed native swaps a lot. The uptime so far has been 389 days, so it's a bit over a year, and the amount of active tokens available is 24 tokens. The largest symmetric liquidity is the 8.1 million added to BTC pool, and the largest asymmetric liquidity is 2.6 million of ETH and 1.2 million of RUNE. So with the launch of THORChain Mainnet, their ADR, also basically their EIP for Ethereum, so they don't call it TIP like THORChain Improvement Proposal, they just call it ADR. It's going to be created for all future changes to the network for greater transparency and decentralization. And the mainnet will support growth and adoption of new chains, wallets, exchanges, dashboards, bots, and aggregators. So in the name of decentralization, the largest remaining centralized point, which is the treasury management, will be handed over to the community when their goals are hit. And some of these goals will be having it on mainnet with 4 to 5 chains. I think that's going to be like a done deal already. And Thor Finance rolling out, that's coming soon. And then there is over 100 plus nodes, and that's also done. And then adequate community support in the form of more wallets, more exchange listings, more dashboards, and more bots. And that's also in progress. So the kill switch, the native RUNE, which will be known as Thor.RUNE in your wallet, was introduced with the Chaosnet launch, and all interfaces have provided the ability to upgrade the native RUNE. So if you are in your wallet, like XDeFi wallet, you just go over to THORSwap, they will actually prompt you to upgrade your BEP2 RUNE into native RUNE. Just note that the BNB.RUNE or the ETH.RUNE, once you upgrade them, you cannot go back into any of this RUNE. So it's a one-way process only. Note that native RUNE is already listed on several exchanges like Binance, Kraken, CoinSpot, and SwiftX. So you don't have to worry about having your native RUNE stuck in your wallet and can't sell it on a centralized exchange. Just to give a bit more information on the Q switch, it's going to be a 1-year declining redemption rate. So from 1 year from now, the amount of RUNE that you can convert into the Thor RUNE or native RUNE drops linearly across 1 year. So there's no reason why you want to wait. So you should just get it done as soon as possible, but you have a pretty long period of time for you to actually redeem. So no hurry if you are like just really don't care about crypto markets right now. You can still do it 1 month later, but you're going to be losing RUNE because the redemption rate drops. So just keep that in mind. Okay, the THORChain Treasury currently sits at 217 million, so that's massive, and it's split between RUNE assets as well as non-RUNE assets and LP assets. So the protocol reserves total 173 million RUNE, worth 2.1 billion. In terms of the protocol reserves, they have about 2 billion based on their documentation, and these are allocated for mainnet emissions, protocol-owned liquidity, and THORFi. So 60 million RUNE remains in standby, with 113 million RUNE already deployed to the network. Over here, the unit cost, they put $12. I'm not sure if that's a mistake, but because this is their official documentation, then I'm just taking it as face value. But if you were to use today's price, RUNE is about $2.30 as of this video, and you can change the numbers accordingly. So moving on to comparing THORChain against other DEX aggregators, because the main thing about crypto is that a lot of liquidity is stuck on individual chains, and it's very important that we actually can move liquidity easily across the different chains. So these are all the different cross-chain DEX from 1inch, Wango, Paraswap, OpenOcean, and you can see that there are a lot of assets that are listed. THORChain has the least at 36 assets, but once they build more chains integration, I expect this number to grow by a lot. So there's a lot of potential for THORChain to become a DEX aggregator where people use THORChain instead of the rest of this as well. So once THORSwap aggregator goes live, they will basically have the same features as what 1inch is doing. They will, for example, if you are swapping from Bitcoin into Ethereum, you can actually expose to all the Ethereum assets that's available on Ethereum. So Bitcoin can directly be swapped into, let's say, DYDX token, for example. So that opens up a lot more asset potential and a lot more volume potential, which generates more fees potential as well. So THORSwap, I've been talking about them. It's the DEX that is interfacing the cross-chain liquidity on THORChain. So THORChain is the layer 1 and THORSwap is the DEX that is built on the layer 1. And it allows for anyone to trade native assets in a decentralized manner, as well as to provide liquidity between two native assets. So built as an aggregator of aggregators, any DEX can have access to the assets and liquidity on other DEX on any chain. So like I mentioned, if you want to move from Bitcoin into AVAX or Cosmos that's coming soon, from Cosmos, you can actually swap into other assets like Osmosis, for example. So they don't want to compete with 1inch on price aggregation, but instead they aim to build on top of their innovation to give end users a seamless experience. So THORSwap will basically be aggregating the rest of the aggregators, and that's what I mean by this part, aggregator of aggregators. So the objective of THORSwap is to connect siloed blockchains. So you can see there is Terra, Solana, Cosmos, ERC20, EVMs, including Avalanche that's coming soon. But they also have things like Phantom, Arbitra, Matic that's all coming. It's all in the roadmap, as well as Polkadot. So this will make the THORChain and THORSwap really exciting for people to use to swap native assets around. So you don't have to run into the problem of using web assets or proxy assets in a particular chain. So just to elaborate further, with THORSwap, you can actually swap from Aave directly into Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin is directly going to be using the THORSwap aggregator to find the cheapest route available. So Aave into ETH and then ETH into BTC is most likely how they're going to do it. So that's pretty awesome. In terms of future developments, a whole suite of DeFi features are coming to THORChain, including single-sided LP vaults, which is like Thor savings. So you provide liquidity and gain yield on fees without risk of IL. So this is similar to asymmetric deposits on THORSwap, but THORSwap uses impermanent loss protection, but for Thor savings, you actually have no risk of IL. So I'm not sure how they do that, but I'm very excited to see how they actually achieve that. And what I'm very excited for is lending and borrowing. So THORFi will utilize these LP assets as collateral and set up self-repaying loans. And there's a lot of potential here. So that sounds pretty awesome. All the Bitcoin users who are very into Bitcoin can now use Bitcoin and THORFi to still actually borrow against their Bitcoin without touching Ethereum. And that's awesome. They also have composite assets like crypto ETFs, so it can be a basket of different crypto tokens, and that sounds very exciting for mainstream adoption as well. And of course, because THORChain is built on Cosmos SDK, they are also going to be having IBC composability very soon. So in terms of network security and risk, there are risks involved because THORChain has been exploited a couple of times. And furthermore, with this launch of Mainnet, the Mainnet network and Treasury will not be taking any responsibility for any losses or any refunds once the Mainnet goes live. But in extreme scenarios, the nodes may pause trading on the network or individual chains to maintain the security and resilience of the network and protect user funds. But the TLDR is basically do not put in more than what you are not able to lose. So that's always the number one rule when it comes to using DeFi protocols. So in terms of token utility, RUNE is the native token of THORChain that can be used for governance, swap fees, liquidity, rewards, and security. So RUNE as a whole, I think it's a pretty robust token with very clear utility and use cases. And in a bull market, due to the deterministic pricing model, RUNE does really well. Its reflexive model will make it moon really quickly. But if we go into a bear market, the reflexive model also does make it go down very quickly. So just keep that in mind. So speaking of the deterministic price, this is what I mean. The RUNE has a deterministic price, or kind of like a floor price, which can be calculated as 3 times to the sum of non-RUNE assets locked divided by the RUNE circulating supply. So if you are not sure what this means, you can watch my previous video on THORChain. I will put the link down in the description below. But we calculated the figures today. The TVL is standing around 310 million with a circulating supply of 330 million RUNE and the current price of 2.31. They have a current deterministic value of 1.41, which is a 1.65 multiplier from the current price, and that's one of the lowest multiplier I've ever seen. Back in the bull market days, I saw this as high as 7 times to 20 times multiplier, and that was just like ridiculous numbers. But now 1.65 multiplier is a pretty good price. It doesn't mean that the floor price goes to 1.41. It just means that if today Bitcoin and ETH and every non-RUNE asset is in their stays the same, RUNE price will not drop below 1.41. But of course, that's not how the market works. They are all correlated. So if the market drops, RUNE will drop and the deterministic value will drop as well. But it does give you a good buffer that the 1.65 multiplier is one of the lowest in terms of like historical records. And the all-time high for RUNE is $21, so it's about 90% down. So that's a pretty good discount for quite a revolutionary tech. And even if you don't want to buy it now, it's something that you might want to put on your shopping list when we get back into a bull market. So just a quick demonstration of the upgrade. Once you go over to app.thorswap.finance/upgrade, again, always remember to go to the right link. I'll put this link in the description below. You can actually see that they'll prompt you on all of your available BEP2 RUNE or ETH RUNE, and they will just tell you to upgrade. So you just go through all the steps and it should be really, really straightforward. Yep. And if you are not familiar with THORChain or THORSwap, I think they have done a fantastic job with the new user interface. They updated it a couple of weeks ago actually, but I think it looks really nice and everything looks great. And I can't wait for more people to try it out. So in conclusion, THORChain will be launching their mainnet after 4 years of trial and error. Previously, they are in their so-called multi-chain Chaosnet, which is basically an experimental mainnet, similar to like Kusama in a way. And now they are finally getting out of this experimental mainnet into just full mainnet. And they are going to go live with integration of ATOM and AVAX. And these developments theoretically will drive the price of RUNE up, because if you think about it, more chain integration means more non-RUNE assets coming in to provide liquidity, right? So if ATOM and AVAX both come in to provide liquidity, then by right, the deterministic pricing goes up and RUNE price should theoretically go up as well together. So although THORChain has a bad reputation of being exploited 3 times, not gonna lie, it was pretty bad PR. This is understandable as they're dealing with a really complicated protocol. Like the average DEX number of lines, right, is less than 1,000. And I think THORChain and THORSwap, they have like over 20,000 lines of code. So it's a very complicated protocol, and they have spent a lot of effort on making sure that it's a lot more secure now. So after that, they haven't been exploited. So touch wood that they will no longer get exploited. But again, you should only put in more than what you can afford to lose. So in the future, we are expecting to see more applications, wallets, and network integration, and all of this should drive up the price of THORChain, especially with the upgraded network security on their mainnet, which should give people a bit more assurance in trying it. So if you are interested in trying it, what I recommend now is BUSD on RUNE. It's the LP that they're actually giving you about more than around 30% or higher in APR, and because it's paired with BUSD, it's a bit more, they give you a bit more buffer if the whole market goes down. And if it does go up, then you also have ILP, impermanent loss protection. So you don't actually lose a lot of impermanent loss from the price going up. So I think that's a pretty good strategy. So feel free to try that out and ultimately do your own research and invest with caution. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.
Baby fish do 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 do, baby fish do 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 do, baby fish do